I wanted to talk about how some things in life are not meant to be understood, but to be experienced, to be lived. Um, I was watching a video about consciousness and about how consciousness is a strange thing. And the creator of that video listed some examples in which he himself experienced strange instances of being very aware of his consciousness. And I don't think that's something that I particularly want to share yet. I don't fully understand sometimes what are some of the things that I have experienced, but today I came to a realization, or maybe a re-realization, about how some things are meant to be understood. No, some things are not meant to be understood, but rather to be lived, to be experienced. And I think it's important in the context of how I've lived or how I'm used to living, because I'm someone who tends to use my mind over my heart, or my mind over my body. And the result of that is that I tend to like to figure out how things are, how things work, how things can be, like trying to find a structural framework or an intellectual framework to sort of slot everything that I know and experience underneath that. And I think the part that's hard for me to do is to actually sit there and just let my experiences be. And I think in some small way that is how I want to live. Like, I think being able to have these experiences are what is important for me in my life, in this aspect called living, and not just the kind of mindless doing that is much more common and which I've also done. And adjacent to that is another thought that I had the last time I came out to film last week, which is about raw dogging life. And so a practice that I have when I come out to film these videos is that I decide on the topic before I get out of the house. And so on the way to where I sit down to film, I try not to, or rather I make it a conscious effort to kind of be in the moment, to raw dog life as some people might put it, right? Like to sit there without a phone, sit there observing, like just taking in what there is on the bus, on the MRT, just experiencing life, right? And last week I came to the realization that like raw dogging life is painful. The word raw dogging already implies that it's painful. And the other part that I realized on my way back from filming that day was that to be able to sort of just sit there and experience life, sit there and let life exist in the same moment as you, right? To be able to do that and hold space for yourself to experience that is kind of a privilege. Like, on the way back home that day, I was really tired, and I didn't have the mental energy or the mental capacity to sit there without my phone. I needed a distraction. Yeah, like, let's not even go into the discussion about whether a distraction is good or bad. I think sometimes you need a distraction, sometimes it's the only way you can continue moving forward. you need to take a break and just, let yourself be distracted for a moment first. So to be able to kind of get past that part where you need to be distracted, where you, after having been distracted, had time to process your thoughts and to get into a space where you are clear enough to be able to take in the raw facts of life is tough, man. It is. So, like, I can't do it all the time. The fact that I can even do it sometimes is not bad already, I think. And as much as I would like my life to be like, raw and unfiltered and fully experienced, I think that is a bit unrealistic. I don't think anybody's life will ever be able to be always fully experienced in that way. I think it's very difficult. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like having a raw wire. No, that's not the phrase. Having like a live wire there the whole time, like having the maximum current run through it the whole time. Like, I think that's just unrealistic. So as much as I would like to experience life in its full unfiltered form, and as much as I would like to try to keep myself open as much as possible to really living in the moment and living and experiencing my life in that way, I'm aware that it is not something that I can realistically do like all of the time. So that, coupled with the realization today that some things are not meant to be understood but just simply to be experienced. I think in a way understanding is like maybe so let me just finish this metaphor first. So I feel like sometimes understanding is a low resolution model of what experiencing is. So if experiencing life is to have the full reality 100% in real life, then understanding would be a constructed model that we have, some sort of mental conceptual model that we have to understand life. And as with all models are things that can map out some key definitions of the real world, but is unable to fully capture the full resolution, the full details of how real life actually is. So I think what I mean by that is that, like, for me it's nice to be able to understand things, and I think it's something that comes easily to me, to want to understand things and to want to search out models and structural frameworks, to conceptual frameworks to understand how things are. But ultimately there is a bit of a distance from the real world when you try to understand something, and that is because understanding kind of has, like, if the real world is this amount, right, like, and these are like going down to the details of like the actual physical realities, and these are some kind of like there's starting to be some sort of structural framework to understand how things are, then understanding would be closer to the top part of this, where there is some overlap with what real life is, but it loses the intricate details on what real life can be. But at the same time, it offers a bit more in the sense that there is a bigger structure overlooking what real life is, and that allows you to kind of have a collapsible framework, or like a more compressible framework to understand things. Like, it takes up less space to understand things that way. Like, I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense. This is just kind of how my own mind works. to sort out things, and I guess this is the first time I'm trying to explain it to like anybody else in this particular way. But like, I think the reason why understanding comes more easily to me is also perhaps because it makes everything a bit more low res. So it's a bit less painful and a bit less overwhelming and overstimulating. But at the same time, it's kind of like if I truly just wanted to understand the world, I can do it without fully living, if that makes sense. And the fact that I'm here in this physical world makes me want to take advantage of the fact that I'm physically here and that, you know, I get to experience physical, real life things with consequences, with textures, with colors, with grain, with, I don't know, like so many levels of details. And yeah, sometimes it's painful to fully experience that. It's overstimulating, and I don't intend to do it all the time. But I think at least in a portion of it, right, I think this is what I want out of life. I want to be able to experience life in its unfiltered form, but at the same time knowing that doing that is overstimulating. I think, yeah, there's a separate portion where I need to figure out how to, you know, take care of myself and tend to myself when I get overstimulated. So that's kind of like a separate thing. Yeah. So I think that's where I'll end this video for today. There isn't, I guess I'll figure out how to title it afterwards, but basically it's just I needed to get this out. I had a bunch of other video titles that I thought I was gonna talk about, but I looked at them before starting this video and I just, like, none of them felt right. So that's why I ended up talking about this, even though it's not very, like, I would say this is the first cut of like my thoughts on this topic. And most of the other stuff that I've considered talking about are things that I kind of at least have a second or third cut of processing on. So yeah, if you made it to the end, thank you for listening to me process my thoughts on camera. And I'm gonna end this video here. Bye.